Good evening, I am José Ramos Nieto, and this is the presentation to the paper named Traffic Lessons from Germany, Recent Trends and a Long Travel History of Possible Futures, that I prepare with Professor Rosa Maria Anon Abajas. Our mobility patterns are evolving over time, based on cultural developments and technological innovation. In society like Germany, technological transformation is an integral part of everyday life that constantly challenges the status quo of how we move and communicate in our cities. With the advent of a new consciousness about the future of our planet, sustainability became the central topic of our culture, and specifically of future concept of mobility. Sustainable mobility aims to cater to the needs of our time and to provide the capacities for future developments, especially when it comes to defining sustainable mobility in the 21st century. In Germany, the approach to a sustainable mobility already evolved some decades ago in the 80s, as alternative modes of counterculture such Mitfahrgelegenheit that organize travels in private cars and off with other people, and in innovation labs of big car companies towards digitalization and self-driving cars. Some decades later, and due to social media related sharing economies, car sharing, vehicles' digital evolution, and a growing environmental consciousness are the driving forces for a radical rethinking of mobility in our cities. Collaborative or sharing consumption is challenging the economy because it induces a two-sided consumer role which goes beyond the traditional notion of a buyer-consumer relationship. It is characterized by consumers' capacity of being both providers and obtainers of resources. Supported by information technology and the popularization of smartphones and other connected devices, now equipped with sophisticated geolocation technology, the collaboration couldn't be easier. Companies like Airbnb, Craigslist, or Uber flourished in the last years, but it is in the mobility sector where innovation has been most evident. Since the 80s, and even more so in recent years, collaborative options appear for single-trip car sharing between cities, like BlaBlaCar, and different fleet of share cars, motorbikes, and bikes like DriveNow, Car2Go, Flinkster, or Nextbike appears. Also, public transportation companies start offering real-time information about the location of their fleet online and allowing an electronic ticket purchase from mobile devices, shortening the waiting time for users. Comfort in public transportation and reduction of individuals' costs are driving force behind these new concepts of individual mobility. However, the discussion about environmental concerns is overshadowing all other arguments. The human impact in our environment has never been so evident, and there are different indicators that point that out. Increasing atmospheric carbon dioxide content, partially a consequence of deforestation and the use of the combustion of fossil fuels for human activities, have reached an alarming level. The plastic production and the extended use of concrete in construction is changing our environment. Noise pollution is the second biggest environmental health threat in Europe, and road traffic is by far the largest source. The Anthropocene is the term proposed to name an epoch that acknowledges the increasing effect of humanity on Earth. Accelerating technological change, a growth in population and consumption can be traced in all aspects of our natural environment. All transformation discussed today have to be seen against this argument. The technological advances in the automobile industry are to produce more efficient vehicles, consuming less resources, and provide more security than ever before. The development of large-capacity electric traction batteries started to change the current dominant petroleum-oriented energy model. The introduction of the hybrid technology in cars combining fuel and electric motors has been a big success and is leading the way to a more environmental friendly vehicles, pointing to a near future scenario where electric cars will be the main options for private mobility. The hopes of a sustainable mobility relies on the application of technological improvements in telecommunications, energy supply, digital devices, and electric vehicles in order to update the current multimodal transport system. So what are the current topics in Germany's discussion on future mobility? Germany has been one of the pioneer countries in the automobile industry since the second part of the 19th century, and its companies are international leaders. With the third highest car production in the world and the fourth highest total motor vehicle production, the importance of the industry can be appreciated in the labor force working in the industry and in the exports. Currently, three German companies dominate the automotive industry in the country: Volkswagen, BMW, and Daimler Mercedes. Nearly 6 million vehicles are produced in Germany each year, and approximately 5.5 million are produced overseas by German brands. The country is specifically sensitive to change that the sector is already experiencing and is looking carefully to foresee the future predictions. These awareness bring up different topics that are generally discussed in different disciplines related to mobility. In the last few months, air pollution and the diesel ban in cities is dominating the news. Missing the EU Air Pollution Directive of 2010 might lead this year to economic sanctions for Germany and other member states, which have now to propose additional measures to keep the air quality under control. Part of these aims are the control of emissions from mobile sources, improving fuel quality, and promoting and integrating environmental protection requirements into the transport and energy sector. Germany's ban against diesel cars accelerated since car maker Volkswagen admitted in 2015 cheating US exhaust tests. Paris, Madrid, and Athens plan to ban diesel vehicles from their city centers by 2025, and Rome a year earlier. Copenhagen's mayor wants to begin restriction as early as next year, while France and the UK will ban new petrol and diesel cars by 2040. A consequence of the Dieselgate are the new real-drive emission measurements that started in September 2017 and allows to check the air pollutant emissions of cars on the road with the help of portable measuring systems. Last February, the Federal Administrative Court of Germany ruled that cities are allowed to impose driving bans on the most polluting diesel cars. The German Environmental Aid Association calls, in addition to real-drive emission measurements, the introduction of a new environmental zone, billboards, which is to mark particularly low-emission cars. Even those who have a green sticker, the current one that certifies that a vehicle meets the highest environmental standards, should not drive into certain environmental zones. It's all about nitrogen dioxide, particulate matter 10, and carbon dioxide emissions. The requirements for a new blue sticker wouldn't be met by any diesel vehicle, even by the ones that already meet the current highest standards. One major proposal to reduce air pollution is the introduction of free public transportation. Germany, in a letter to the Commission, said that it was considering plans to make public transport free in cities suffering from air quality problems. It also outlined measures to be tested by the end of this year, such as the low emission zones and supporting the extension of car sharing schemes. As a consequence of that report, the federal government proposed 5 cities to try additional measurements to be concrete to improve the situation. These are Bonn, Essen, Herrenberg, Reutlingen und Mannheim. City administration warned that more planning is going to be needed if free travel implementation is going to succeed. Also, the funding system is to be discussed. The problem is to establish the financial support for more carriage, more personnel, and maybe even more tracks and lines that would be needed. Public transport is highly popular in Germany, where the systems are usually regional, and a ticket for the metro is also valid for trams and buses. Most German cities use a zone system to determine the price of the ticket, and there is no physical barrier to access the train, so platforms feels like the extension of the public space. Another proposal focuses on zonification and cars in relationship to car sharing, and electric and autonomous cars. The existing price zone system have been used by car sharing companies to start operating in cities with extended public infrastructure like Berlin and Munich. Daimler launched Car2Go in 2008 and now is operating in Berlin, Düsseldorf, Frankfurt, Hamburg, Munich, Stuttgart, and other 20 cities in Europe, USA, and China, using 14 vehicles for 2.5 million customers worldwide. BMW, in collaboration with Car Rental Sixt, introduced Drive Now in Munich in 2011 and expanded rapidly to the major German cities in the following years, and to other European cities. The system offered gasoline, diesel, and electric cars to be rented for city trips. With more than 1 million clients and 7,000 vehicles only in Germany, in cities like Berlin, around 10% of their fleet are electric cars. A remarkable statistic, knowing that the market share of electric cars was only 1.58% in 2017. The implementation of the charger infrastructure for the electric cars across the country is still a problem for the expansion of the electric cars in the cities, as in many other countries. A massive plan has been announced to more than double the current electric car charging infrastructure by converting 12,000 electric distribution boxes. With around 10,800 public charge points in Germany at the moment, the plan alone would double the current charging infrastructure in the country by 2020. Installing electric vehicles charging stations inside street lamps posts is also being discussed, but the technology has not been ready until recently. Berlin-based technology company Ubitricity is working on technology that allows electric vehicles to be connected to the power grid wherever they park. The aim is to replace battery charging stations with intelligent socket systems that can easily be used by drivers. The implementation begins by converting existing street lamps to energy-efficient LED. This frees up some of the available power which can be used for an electric vehicle charging socket installed at the base of the lamp column, without having to dig up the road to install new cables. The next generation of cars will make it possible to eliminate the driver. Different companies are testing autonomous cars. Oli, for example, is a driverless bus proposal sponsored by the Deutsche Bahn to update the public transport vehicles, and it's been tested in the Europe campus in Berlin. But this technology is not only tested within the city. since regional governments like Baden-Württemberg, Niedersachsen, and Nordrhein-Westfalen already define areas on highways where autonomous car can be tested, and more such test zones have been proposed in other parts of the country and will be in use during this year. Another powerful project is the implementation of bike lane highways that other European cities, like Copenhagen, already test very successfully. Germany was the first nation to create a high-speed highway network for cars, and now it's joining the avant-garde of countries doing the same for bikes. The bike Autobahn is designed to have flat surface and straight distance without crossroads, together with illumination and winter weather maintained. It includes a larger separation between pedestrian and cyclists, which should ensure better safety, especially for wide load such as cargo bikes. The potential of the idea are medium-length journeys for frequent daily bike users that travel from the suburbs to the inner cities. Munich is already planning a network of bike highways, which will stretch from the historic center out along 14 protected two-lane paths through the suburbs into the surrounding lakeland. Also, Berlin government has foreseen 13 long-distance bike routes that will require cyclists to stop for no more than 30 seconds to accommodate intersection or lights. How is architecture part of that transformation, and what are the potentials for new buildings innovations? Every new technology like trains, cars, or the telephone that get introduced into our city fabric changed the topology and urban network. The advent of digital technologies and mobility is just starting to make a big impact. We see new models of car ownership and individual mobility, changing commuter profiles and emerging local models of transportation, new innovation for high-speed connection like Hyperloop, and drone networks that conquer our airspace. These innovations are critically discussed every day on a local and international level with the understanding of urgency as well as uncertainty about necessary change in order to survive. And there is a vague understanding what this will mean for architects, engineers, and urban planners. Infrastructure buildings for public transportation will become more diversified, and the idea of intermodal hubs that connect between public transportation and individual mobility service is one big topic. The unique potential for architects is the speculation of a new building type that hasn't existed before, and how the process of transformation and implementation toward these new forms of mobilities can be orchestrated, mostly around the implementation of electric and autonomous cars. The major companies are scheduling the presentation of new electric vehicles that will increase their market share in the next years. At the same time, new clean zones are going to exclude the most noisy and polluting cars from the cities, and the autonomous cars will start circulating in the limited private areas until a common standard technology be established. The public charging dock infrastructure will be the result of updating the existing electric points in the streets, and the autonomy of the battery will increase with the time. The new housing projects already foresee the installation of private use charge for electric vehicles. The German company Urban Standards is developing business models to offer mobility as a service, included in real estate projects, concierge, gardener, and electric vehicle fleet to service the inhabitants. Sharing cars and other smart technologies applied to achieve a more efficient mobility means that less private cars will be needed in the future. Some studies point out of a reduction of 2/3 of private cars, liberating space on the streets that might be the real winner of the new mobility, the requalification of the public space. That leads to an urban approach, more than architectural approach, in the city centers, but not in the suburbs, where big parking surface might not be needed and can become key areas to relieve the lack of housing and the sprawl problem. Since density is also a key factor to develop public transportation, these consequences might lead to better connection in that way. Public transport systems in the city are often organized radially, and cross connections do not work. That can be an opportunity to fill these gaps with alternative, complementary lines that will connect to the idea of free public transport systems in discussion recently. If the stations are going to be updated to house more capacity and transform into intermodal hubs, new flow studies for a better integration in the surroundings urban context might be needed. Such projects already started in city hubs with mixed-use programs, also called transport-oriented developments, like the main stations in Berlin, Stuttgart, and Munich. Not only the station itself, but the real estate around it has an added value that attracts investors. Putting existing lines underground has become a lucrative operation that many cities are implementing. The architectural innovation to transportation hubs will then be linked to the generated land plots and the result of the creation of space on top of underground infrastructure. But so far, in Germany, conventional reality also sets in here as well. New mobility, yes, but just basic real estate business on the top of it. Thank you very much.